always prided myself on being a devoted husband. Every Wednesday evening, I meticulously prepared our home for my wife Sarah's women's prayer circle. I'd set out the folding chairs in a neat semicircle in the living room, arrange a tray of iced tea and homemade cookies, and ensure the house was spotless. Sarah would smile and thank me, her eyes warm with what I thought was love. I believed in our marriage and the vows we'd made 5 years ago, and I poured my heart into making her happy. Those evenings I'd retreat to the kitchen or our small study, giving her and her friends space for their spiritual discussions, feeling content in my role as her supportive partner. One particular Wednesday, as I carried the refreshment tray into the living room, I paused just outside the doorway, hidden by the half-open door. The women's voices carried, light with laughter, and I smiled, thinking they were sharing a joyful moment. But then I heard Sarah's voice, sharp and mocking. "Oh, he's so easy to handle," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "A few sweet words, and he's practically begging to do whatever I want. Honestly, it's pathetic how he fawns over me." The other women laughed, one adding, "You've got him wrapped around your fingers, Sarah. Does he ever suspect you're just playing him?" Sarah's reply cut through me like a knife. "Suspect? He's too busy worshiping the ground I walk on. He thinks this is love. It's almost too easy." I stood frozen, the tray trembling in my hands. My heart pounded as their words sank in. The woman I loved, the woman I'd built my life around, didn't love me. She was manipulating me, mocking me behind my back, and I'd been too blind to see it. I quietly set the tray down in the kitchen and slipped into the study, my mind reeling. Every moment of our marriage flashed before me. Her gentle requests that always felt like commands, the way she'd pout if I hesitated, the subtle guilt trips that kept me in line. I thought I was being a good husband, but I was just her puppet. That night something shifted inside me. The hurt burned, but beneath it, a spark of anger flared. Not just at Sarah, but at myself for letting her control me. I decided I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. I started paying closer attention, watching her behavior with new eyes. I noticed how she'd twist conversations to make me feel guilty, how she'd dismiss my opinions with a smile, how she'd always get her way. I began documenting everything, every manipulative comment, every instance of gaslighting, in a small notebook I kept hidden in my desk. I also started researching divorce laws and quietly reached out to a lawyer, a calm, no-nonsense woman named Ellen who listened to my story with a knowing nod. "You're not the first man to wake up like this," she said. "Let's start building your case." As I stopped bending to Sarah's every whim, the dynamic in our marriage shifted. I no longer jumped to fulfill her requests, and I started saying no without explanation. The first time I refused to rearrange my schedule for one of her last-minute demands, her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed. "What's gotten into you?" she asked, her voice sweet but laced with irritation. I just shrugged and walked away, my heart racing with a mix of fear and exhilaration. She tried harder to pull me back in, teary apologies, sudden bursts of affection, but I saw through her tactics now. Each attempt only strengthened my resolve. One evening while Sarah was out, I went through our shared laptop, looking for financial records to share with Ellen. What I found was far worse. In a folder buried deep in her email, I discovered messages between Sarah and her best friend, Lisa. They were brutal. Sarah had written about how she'd never wanted kids, despite telling me for years that we'd start a family soon. She'd lied to keep me tethered, knowing how much I wanted to be a father. Worse, I found evidence she'd been siphoning money from our joint account into a separate one in her name, small amounts over years that added up to thousands. The betrayal was staggering, but it was also the final push I needed. I copied everything and sent it to Ellen. When I confronted Sarah, I didn't yell or accuse. I laid out the evidence calmly. Her emails, the bank statements, the notebook I'd kept. Her face went pale then red. She tried every trick in her book. Tears, denials, accusations that I was misunderstanding her. When that didn't work, she turned vicious, calling me ungrateful, weak, a failure. But her words didn't cut like they used to. I looked at her and felt nothing but pity. "I'm done, Sarah," I said. "I'm filing for divorce." She laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "You'll regret this. You're nothing without me." The divorce process was grueling, but Ellen was a godsend. She presented the evidence of Sarah's financial deceit and emotional manipulation, arguing that I deserved a fair settlement despite Sarah's attempts to paint herself as the victim. Sarah's tears in court were Oscar-worthy, but the judge saw through her. In the end, I walked away with half our assets and my freedom. Sarah moved out, and the house felt empty but peaceful for the first time in years. After the divorce, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I started therapy, something I'd never considered before, and it helped me unravel the years of manipulation and rediscover who I was. I took up hobbies I'd abandoned during our marriage, hiking, woodworking, and found joy in small things like cooking a meal just for myself. I also reconnected with old friends, who admitted they'd seen Sarah's controlling behavior but hadn't known how to tell me. Their support was a lifeline. Word of our divorce spread through our small community, and to my surprise, it had a ripple effect. Other men, friends and acquaintances started sharing their own stories of manipulative partners. Some were inspired to seek counseling. Others left toxic relationships. The prayer circle Sarah had once led fell apart when her friends' husbands began questioning their own marriages. It was as if my decision to stand up for myself had cracked open a door, letting others see their own truths. Looking back, I see my marriage to Sarah as a painful but necessary lesson. I learned that love isn't about submission or losing yourself to someone else's whims. It's about mutual respect, honesty, and authenticity. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm grateful for the strength I found in myself. As I sit in my quiet home, planning a solo hiking trip for the weekend, I feel a sense of excitement I haven't felt in years. The future is wide open, and for the first time I'm living it on my terms.